Good afternoon from India, and this is Abhivardhan from Global Law Assembly. And here we begin with the Global Law Assembly Conference 2021. Those who will be binge watching us, as well as those who are watching us live, thank you so much for joining Internationalism Global Podcast. Please do subscribe to the channel and please do support the efforts. We are thankful for the 755 plus subscribers on YouTube and also for your wholesome support on other social media platforms. So, here we begin with the Global Law Assembly Conference. This is a special curtain raiser. My name is Abhivardhan, as I stated, and I am the President and Managing Trustee of Global Law Assembly. Along with me, I have Pratejas Tomar, who is the Chief Executive Advisor of Global Law Assembly. And as the session begins, this curtain raiser is kind of an explainer for everybody to understand what the conference is going to provide this year, how many panels we have, and what is the core central theme. So the core central theme of Global Law Assembly Conference 2021 is endocracy and global multipolarity. So my friend Pratejas will be further elaborating about global multipolarity and endocracy in general. So Pratejas, over to you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. As Abhivardhan pointed out, the central theme of this year's conference is Endocracy and Global Multipolarity. Now, first of all, we need to understand that this term, which is made up of two separate terms. First, global multipolarity, which indicates a multipolar world where a lot of countries, or basically more than two estates, are involved with supremacy when it comes to culture, military, and various other dimensions. And secondly, endocracy. Endocracy is the Indian vision towards the global governance. Now, Indian vision towards global governance. It is not a new idea. It is something that has been around for ages. If we go back to Indus Valley civilization, the old civilization, which is famously touted as the first urbanized civilization. Since Indus Valley civilization had relations with a lot of civilizations like Mesopotamian civilization, so the endocracy, the idea of endocracy basically has traveled from has traveled through ages, and now we need to modernize that idea, and we need to see what are the changes that India needs to make on the global front when it comes to governance. Now, when we talk about the Indic vision, we cannot forget about the Indo-Pacific. Now, obviously, Indo-Pacific is something which is not new to the world. Earlier, it was famously touted as Asia Pacific by some of the Western countries, such as USA, but now they term it as Asia Pacific plus India. The Indo-Pacific as a term which was first coined by Japan, because India, as a country, not only as a country, but as a member of Indo-Pacific, it has made significant strides when it comes to different dimensions like military, culture, etc. And accordingly, Japan termed it as Indo-Pacific because India is very, very important for Indo-Pacific. Now, there are three central problems that one can associate with Indo-Pacific. First is the conundrum regarding what are the boundaries of Indo-Pacific. Because if we talk about in terms of what India thinks or what Japan thinks, the boundaries include right from the Indian Ocean to the Strait of Malacca and all the way up to Vladivostok. But the Western countries, well, as they are, they even consider the Western Pacific Ocean as a complete part of the Indo-Pacific, as well as the second problem, which is the land issues. Now, we all know about the Belt and Road Initiative that has been started by China, and it involves various countries like Pakistan, Turkmenistan, Montenegro, etc. Now, what is wrong with this Belt and Road Initiative? Now, as we know that China doesn't really allow anyone to um, you know display or its supremacy, especially when it comes to South Asia, Southeast Asia. And that is what this Belt and Road Initiative signifies for China. Now, Belt and Road Initiative is something which is a problem for Indo-Pacific, because with this, not only China is trying to undermine the presence of India, but is trying to amplify its significance not only in the Indo-Pacific region, but also trying to amplify its region in the countries itself. And the third is obviously the traditional US problem. Now, obviously, US earlier it used to call the Indo-Pacific, Asia Pacific. Now it calls it Asia Pacific plus India. So basically, its stance has not changed. Why it calls Asia Pacific plus India is because of the formation of Quad. Because earlier Quad didn't exist, now it exists, and this has been a problem with US. If we talk about in general, its basically desire of this soft power and its desire to have restrictions over other countries. So these are the three dimensions or three problems which are central to Indo-Pacific. Now, coming on to the panels that are a part of Global Law Assembly Conference 2021. There are four panels this year that we are having. The first panel is strengthening multilateralism beyond OECD G20 and tackling basic erosion of profit sharing tax avoidance and practices. Now, this is the topic of the panel, and the basic theme here is global governance and international taxation. Now we know that uh, 2008 financial crisis was a big event in when it comes to global trade, and basically it shook the entire world market. And after that, several measures were introduced, and globalization also took a hit due to this, due to the 2008 financial crisis. But those measures were not significant, and now we see that in the recent past, the big billionaires of the world now, they have been evading taxes. Their net worth has been skyrocketing for the past few years. Good example would be Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and there are a lot of loopholes which are present in the current taxation system, and this is what we tend to discuss in this particular panel. And this is also true for the Indian individuals who have a lot of money stacked in Swiss banks, which the Indian government is still trying to get, but due to the global taxation laws, the Indian government has probably not found any success because of the laws as they are right now. Now, coming on to the second panel is uh, the credibility in question of the India-US relationship and their soft power conundrums. This is the topic, and the basic theme of this panel is Indo-US relation and Indian diplomacy. Now, the Indo-US relations date back to probably, we can have the Indo-US relations have it's like it has been in the form of a sinusoidal wave. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. And in the recent past, they have been good, especially if we talk about during the regimes of the last few presidents, Barack Obama, uh, Donald Trump, even George Bush. The relations have been good during the presidency of these presidents. Uh, the as I pointed out earlier, the central problem with US is that it basically tries to exploit each and every country uh, for its own benefit. And that has been the problem with Indo US relations as well. Now, when we come when we talk about Indo-US relations, there are three aspects which are very, very important. First is strategy, second is military, and third is economics. And India has been trading blows in uh, all of these three aspects for the last few years. There has been significant improvement when it comes to military technology. There has been our exports have increased significantly in the past few years. And yes, COVID pandemic has impacted our exports, but still the exports are in a good position. And I think uh, this is what has been the problem with US, because if we see in the last few years, its economy has been on a decline. It has not been able to capitalize on the opportunities that it has got, and this is the very reason why it has been exploiting countries like India. So India really needs to rethink its Indo-US policy, and this is what we are going to be discussing in this panel. Now, coming on to the third panel is proposal for the Indian teaching services for the developing India's knowledge economy. And the central theme of this is knowledge economic studies. Now, Indian teaching services. This term has been around for some time, and Indian teaching services is the need of the hour, because we are moving towards a world which will be full of specialization and specialized people. And basic idea behind this uh, Indian teaching services is to cater the talent so that we can extract the best man for the job. And this is what we'll be going through uh, in this panel, because India, if we talk about uh, in the field of education, India is one of the oldest countries that has had a significant contribution in the field of education. Right from the time of Aryabhatta, we have made significant contributions, and India knows the value of its teachers. So it is a high time that we discuss this burning issue of Indian teaching services. And the fourth and final panel that we'll be going through in this conference is the need to develop efficient private aerospace firms in India. The theme being defense and strategic studies. Now, we all know that there are these big aviation giants in the world like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, etc. What is common with these firms? All of them are private. In India, if we talk about major chunk of the defense equipments are manufactured by the government firms like DRDO, NAL, and this is not a problem. But if we talk about the recent um, schemes which the Indian governments have put out, especially the Atmanirbhar Bharat and Indian government's push for privatization, we need good aerospace firms to fulfill the needs of our army, of our air force, and navy at the same time. Because what these aerospace firms will do is they will instill a feeling of competition, and competition is very important for innovation, and that is what we'll be going through in this panel. And this is so basically this was a brief description about the panels and about the theme of the conference. And now I'll be switching over to Abhivardhan, who will give you a brief of what the Global Law Assembly has been, or over the basically the history of Global Law Assembly.
Thank you so much, Pratijas, for your delightful introduction. So I'll take it from here. So, Global Law Assembly incorporated and registered itself in June 2021, that I admit. However, we started the initiative last year under internationalism research, which now ceases to exist because under Abhi Global, its purpose is now completed. So, Global Law Assembly, when was launched, it was kind of an initiative under Abhi Global, and the idea was to get something tuned when it comes to issues of networking in the domain of law and international relations. So, we started with the Indian International Law Program as our research area, and with that, we focused on the aspects of how such issues related to Indian diplomacy and international law are coherent to each other. And this is something which is not commonly seen because in the strategic thought process or the strategic, I would say, the strategic thinking ecosystem of Indian foreign policy, we don't see effective research in these areas so much. Either they are very much pro India US relations or they are much pro Indo Anglophone relations. And this is something which is not seen commonly because of the simple reason that since the trends related to Anglophone and Indo US relations have been thriving for long, the basic issues of India as a superpower, which it can become or may become in the coming 20 years, is not understood properly. That's why a lack of strategic thought and a loss of strategic thinking exists in the particular understanding of Indian foreign policy or whatever that we call it. So in IILP, we published a few books. We published many reports. We came up with some excellent works. We also declared the best reads under internationalism research. And we realized that Global Law Assembly started growing. In fact, we had declared that Global Law Assembly conference would be happening in February or March. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and then the second wave, we decided that let's postpone it to July. And then finally, we are here and we are having the conference. So that was the basic aspect and instinct behind the formation of Global Law Assembly. I am very much grateful to the former Chief Executive Officers of Global Law Assembly and the current Chief Vision Officer, who is Akash Manwani, a very able advocate and a very talented individual. So Akash is also a consultant, which is innovation consultant with ISAIL, which is the Indian Society of Artificial Intelligence and Law, which is also one of my key dreams and one of my major organizations which I've founded in the past years. So, the purpose of Global Law Assembly when it comes to its research agendas are very clear. We have two things to focus on. The first thing is, which is global governance with an ended point of view, and second is corporate innovation, which mostly involves in company law and private international law in its best intersectional domains. Now, global governance is not something like public international law because in public international law your focus is directly on the political and legal issues which are under the domain of international constitutive law, as everybody knows it. It starts from the United Nations Charter to the Lisbon Treaty to how the SAC was formed, and all of these are constitutive understandings, right? But public international law is not limited to the traditionalist positive legal and constitutional understanding of things. International law also has a domain of global governance. However, global governance does not mean world government at all. This is also a big misconception among a lot of people. They believe that, okay, global governance is about having a world government and having a world parliament. That is impossible in geopolitics, that is impossible in private relations as well as international law. Why? Because countries will never agree to it. And second, it's not about even agreement of countries. Naturally, under civilizational studies, it is not possible. Empires do not agree for this, and even people do not agree at local and indigenous levels. So, what's the solution and what's the catch? So, what's happening in global governance is that public actors, which is your normal state actors, and your private actors are gaining a very important impetus. It's not just your FBI and CIA and the erstwhile KGB and the Chinese Communist Party, which is gaining dominance. It's also your private actors who have their intersectional roles in various domains, whether it is in technology, whether it is in semiconductors, whether it is in arbitration, whether it is in other domains. And they are gaining their dominance as well as relevance in their own way. They are creating their own particularisms of homogeny as well as multipolarity and monopoly wherever necessary. That is why Indocracy and global multipolarity, as Pratyaj has rightly pointed out about the three issues, is also concerned with the role of multi alignment. So, India, when focuses on multi alignment as a foreign policy strategy, it helps it as well as the global order because even countries like Singapore, Israel, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, all of these adopt a similar strategy. So that's the understanding of the conference and also the history of Global Law Assembly. We are actually 1 year old. We registered this year, which means we are now registered since June 2021. But as a 1 year old initiative, we might be coming up with some special reports actually explaining of as to what we have done. And of course, in the coming years, we will have these amazing Global Law Assembly conferences. And also, one interesting news to share, we will be coming up with a very interesting moot court which will be inquisitively based on the values of mooting as well as networking when it comes to engaging with the international law fraternity. And when I say the international law fraternity, it's a mix of public and private international law, not just the public international law fraternity. So, global governance and corporate innovation are actually central to those ideas. And both of these conceptions, which are in practical need, which are being put into use, are based on three domains of policy which are very important for anyone to understand. And that's what we do in Global Law Assembly, which is culture, economics, and environment. The role of culture, as Pratyaj just explained about Nalanda University and also about the Indic knowledge systems, is of course there, wherein there's a bottom top approaches of course, those decolonial cultures and also other cultures which who have their role in privatizing and also gaining expenses and making economic gains as well as civilizational changes. The second aspect is environment, and it's not just climate change under international law. Climate change is a specific component of environment. The bigger picture of environment has to more to do with mediation and other forms of dispute resolution. It has also to do with the utility of products and service sectors. uh, I mean the manufacturing and service sectors, and how within them the developed and developing countries are collaborating. How the developing countries are coming up with economic ideas, which of course might not comply with the Kuznets curve model right now, because of course many developing countries due to the COVID-19 pandemic are not developed countries in that sense. They have not been for some time. They're still gaining their ground, and the global supply chains are in a distress. One thing which is pretty clear is that in the approach of environment should be more vibrant as well as central to the needs of the developing countries. In fact, India, South Africa, Singapore already are proposing and thinking of better options when it comes to environment. And they are not just centralizing it to climate change, they are expanding it. In fact, India is the only country in the world, according to a research, which states that India is the only country which is actually abided with the carbon emission levels under the Paris Accord of 2015. This is something which even the US has not achieved under Donald Trump or Barack Obama or Joseph R. Biden. However, under India, that has happened for now. However, the question could become when it comes to the commitment of Paris Accords Plus, which is actually beyond the Paris Accord, but that is a different question altogether, and that can develop with time. So India is a very vibrant example. We are an India-centric organization, and we are happy to have you on board for this conference. Let's see how this goes. Today we have a panel at 2 p.m. with Bhavna Jaishekhar. She will be moderating it, and we have some very amazing panelists who will be discussing the avenues of tax law with respect to OECD and G20. You must have heard news about the global corporate tax. So here's the catch. Attend this panel discussion and really enjoy it. And yes, you will find me and Pratejas in the second, third, and fourth panels, respectively. I will be there with Karthika Vipul Mushra discussing about Indo-US ties, and Pratejas will be discussing as a moderator along with me on defense and aerospace firms in India, as well as the Indian education system when it comes to the Indian teaching services. So we are also trying to come up with a proposal on Indian teaching services. I hope that you like this discussion, and we end the curtain raiser right away. Thank you so much for attending this curtain raiser and also being watching this curtain raiser. We are very thankful for that. With this, we end the session, and namaste.